Hi there, I'm Jamie Taylor. Welcome to Your Health Matters, brought to you by Kingman Regional Medical Center, your community-owned hospital. This program focuses on different healthcare issues, services, and providers that really impact you and your family. So I hope you'll stay tuned because I've got a really exciting guest on the program today. We'll be back right after these messages. Welcome back to Your Health Matters. My guest today is Brent Paul, the lead helicopter pilot with Guardian Air, correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
At least I know it's kind of an abbreviated version of it. We
Right.
can talk more about that later. But first, tell me a little bit about Brent. Like, how long have you been in Kingman?
Well, I've been in Kingman almost 7 years.
Okay.
I'm retired from the Army.
Oh,
I flew, the last 13 years, I flew Black Hawk helicopters. The last 5.5 years before I retired, I was the head instructor pilot of the medevac unit up in Alaska. We did all the civilian rescues in the interior of Alaska.
is that the crazy people that try to go out and build a snowman at the North Pole, or what? I don't know. Who's up in
a lot of hunters that get hurt.
Oh, okay.
The few highways that there are accidents. There's a lot of villages up there that don't have roads. And so when they have somebody that's sick that needs to go to the hospital, we would fly out and pick them up. A lot of hunting accidents, a lot of outdoor accidents, and kind of rescues. And so I did that, and then I retired, and I've been down here ever since for about 7 years.
So that's kind of a big change, Alaska to Kingman. I mean, I know obviously you were there stationed there, but how did you pick Kingman? What brought you here?
I'm married.
Oh, that'll do it.
I would have stayed in Alaska. I loved Alaska.
Oh, did you really?
But my wife didn't like the cold.
Oh, well, yeah.
And my wife's actually from Las Vegas, and we have family in Vegas and St. George in the local area. And I had a good friend who at the time was the lead pilot here in Kingman. And so when I retired, I called him up, and not too long after that, there was an opening here.
Perfect
and
timing.
so we came down. It was warm for my wife and near family, so
that's good. And you can always fly back to Alaska once in a while to get your fix, right?
Sure,
or go up into the Wallapies.
Sure.
I'm from Minnesota originally, so I always say this is my idea of a perfect winter. I can drive up and play in the snow and then come back down and be out of it.
Yeah. I don't miss the cold. That's true. But.
Well, and you were mentioning earlier a hunter, and so we have some opportunities for that here as well.
You know, you adapt, you know.
Yes, you do.
I hunted moose and caribou up there and Dall sheep, and now I hunt quail and elk and javelina.
There you go. Quail. That I've always wondered about that because they're such a small bird. Is there anything left after you shoot it?
If you use the right gun.
Okay.
Right.
Now, someone told me, not too long ago, that they have a new pellet out that's made like with some kind of a seasoning. So when you shoot the bird, it like literally you can cook it and it dissolves. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that.
I know, so I don't know either, but it's like you're pre-seasoning your meat when you shoot it.
I never thought of that. I
Yeah,
guess that's.
I don't know how it works, but anyway, you might want to look into that.
Okay.
So you came to Kingman, and now you're lead pilot with Guardian, and you were sharing with me before the show that it's kind of a complex relationship, that actually Guardian is owned by Flagstaff. Explain that,
right.
please.
Guardian Air is basically the hospital in Flagstaff, and they have helicopters in Kingman, Flagstaff, Cottonwood, and Winslow, and a fixed wing, an airplane over in Show Low.
Oh, okay.
And so they actually own the aircraft, and they employ the nurse and the paramedic that fly in the back. And then what they do is basically I don't know if the right word is lease, that's what I say, but they lease, for each one of their aircraft, they lease 4 pilots and a mechanic to fly and take care of the aircraft.
Okay, so you don't work for Flagstaff
I
Medical
don't.
Center.
I actually work for a company called Air Methods, which is out of Denver, Colorado. And then we fly for Guardian Air, which is out of Flagstaff, and then they actually have a contract with KRMC to fly patients out of the hospital if there's patients that they can't, that they don't have the services for here. Then we fly them out of the hospital here, and we go to Phoenix, Vegas, Flagstaff sometimes. And then we'll also do some scene calls, fly out to accidents. But a lot of what we do, probably 75 or 80%, is flying patients out of KRMC or some of the hospitals on the river up to the major trauma centers or bigger hospitals.
So are you currently, are you in Kingman then? I mean,
Yes, the helicopter is based out at the airport.
Oh, okay.
And we have a crew, a pilot, a nurse, and a medic that are there 24 hours a day.
So they're on site at the airport, like it's part of their job. They stay out there.
Yes.
They're not like on call at home waiting for the call. They're actually.
We're expected to be in the air in 8 to 10 minutes when we get a call.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, you've got a fast turnaround.
Right. So we stay. The pilots. There's regulations for safety. Pilots can't work more than 14 hours so that they're rested. So we work 12-hour shifts, and that way if we get a call at the end of the shift, we can still complete it.
Okay.
And then the nurses and the paramedic, they work 24-hour shifts.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do they have a cot there at the office or something? No?
We do, yes. We each have our own bedroom, and where you can get rest. And and my wife laughs at me because sometimes if I go to work and there's no calls, I can go to sleep and get up, and how many people get
do at home, right?
how many people get paid to sleep,
there
right?
You go.
Now, sometimes it's very busy, and then sometimes you may go a day or two without anything. And I was on last night, and we had we flew one patient at 9 or 10 in the evening, and we're back to base by midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got to sleep the rest of the night.
There you go. Well, that's pretty good. I got woke up in the middle of the night by neighbors' cows, so you probably got a better night's sleep than I did. No.
Right.
So, curious on the helicopter. So you learned to fly through the Army, obviously.
Yes.
The types of helicopters that Guardian has or that you fly, are they similar to what you flew in the Army? Is it different? I don't know that
Very
much about.
different.
Okay. I don't know a lot about, other than weapons on them. I mean, what other differences are there?
I flew a Black Hawk helicopter, and a very big helicopter, weighs in the medical configuration 16 or 17,000 pounds.
Wow.
You can change the interior, and that's the main assault helicopter that the military uses, that you can put 11 people in the back plus the pilots and the crew. The helicopters we fly here are a lot smaller.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with economics, money.
They use less fuel when they're lighter, I'm assuming.
A lot cheaper to and you don't need a helicopter capable of carrying 13 people, and you're only going to carry a couple at a time.
Say it's one or two patients probably normally at the most, right?
Right.
And then plus your nurse and paramedic.
We can only fly with our helicopter. We have one bed, so we can only fly one patient at a time.
Okay.
And it's a Bell 407 helicopter, and it only it weighs about 4,000 or 5,000 pounds, so it's
significantly lighter.
Very smaller, a lot smaller.
Right.
But still for what we do, very capable, great aircraft, a lot of fun to fly.
Well, that's good.
Just a lot smaller.
I've heard too that like here at KRMC, the helicopter landing pad where you have behind the hospital, that to me at least seems like it would be a bit of a challenge coming in there, especially when you have the wind that we have here once in a while. So obviously your previous experience helped a lot with that. I would think.
Sure, it did, and actually probably a Black Hawk wouldn't. Black Hawk probably wouldn't fit behind the helipad here, but it's plenty big for the helicopters that we come in. But you do have to pay attention to the winds, and there's a lot of technical stuff. But what direction the wind's coming makes a big difference.
Yeah.
The good thing is the winds here most of the time during the year come out of the southwest, which works very well for the helipad.
For the way the buildings are situated around it.
The only time, the one that gives us more problems is if the winds come out of the east, which is actually fairly rare, but when they do, it creates turbulence over the top of the building, and almost like somebody's holding the helicopter down.
Oh, so it's harder to get lift off?
A little harder to lift, and so we'll increase our margin of how much that we can pick up, and we'll adjust to compensate for the winds. Temperature is a big deal on how much weight that we can lift. We're almost unlimited with what we can pick up during the winter. 9 months out of the year, it's not an issue, but when it gets up 95, 100 degrees,
Like it has been recently.
then we have to cut our fuel load way down, and then we have to really watch our weight.
Yeah,
and how
I was
much
just going to say, do you all have to go on a diet during that time?
they want me to.
I don't know how else you cut down on the weight. Well, he's got to go. He's over the limit.
Well, I mean, you do. We cut down on we cut down our fuel. So instead of being able to fly someplace and get back, we only take enough like to get to Vegas, and then we would stop and refuel before we come home.
Okay.
Sometimes if it gets over 100 degrees, sometimes we call it the shuttle, where we may have to come over and package with just the nurse and get the patient on board, and then our medic will run back over to the airport.
Oh.
And then we'll fly over to the airport, because there's again, it gets kind of technical, but it takes a lot more power for a helicopter to go straight up than it does if you can take off along the ground, because there's a cushion of air. You can pick up 200 or 300 pounds more if you get a run. So if we can get someplace where we can take off, where we have a little bit of room to run, we can pick up more weight. And so like if we go out to accidents, sometimes we'll have them, when it's real hot, we'll have them clear stuff and we can go down the highway.
Okay.
Here at the hospital with the helipad, you have to go straight
Right,
up. So if it's an issue, we can reposition over
Okay.
to the airport and take off from there. And
Sure.
so
Well,
that
that
we can
makes
handle
sense.
it.
And I think, I've heard people in the past talk about, actually not so much here in Kingman, but where they were like waiting for the helicopter in Havasu, and then they came and then they landed in Bullhead. They had to change something. And, I think a lot of times people just don't realize the logistics of what it takes, that full team plus, everything that's involved with having a helicopter, I guess, rescue is, or
Right, and I mean, there's just so many, factors. The temperature, altitude is big. What we can pick up here at 3,500 feet in Kingman is completely different than 5,000 feet. Or we can pick up a lot more weight down on the river.
because it's lower.
Because it's slower, but it's usually hotter, and so you have to take in the temperature, what are the winds doing, what's the altitude, and all that changes. Of course, we have charts, and from experience, we figure all that out, and exact weights, and then we come up with a way to safely make the flight.
So is your co-pilot, you mentioned it, so there's two of you in the helicopter, or
No,
just you?
Just one pilot, one nurse, and one
I
medic.
guess you were saying 4 pilots, and that's why I got confused. It's they're on rotating shifts. That's what it's for.
And that's we work 7 days on, 7 days off, 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
So 2 pilots basically on each day.
Okay.
One night pilot and one day pilot.
Okay.
And
And then do you rotate? So maybe the next time around you're going to work
We
nights?
do.
and
I work
so-
like a week of days, and then I'm off for a week, and then I work a week of nights.
Okay.
And we shift back and
Okay.
forth that way. So.
Okay. Well, then I would imagine during the day you get more probably from the hospital as far as procedures maybe, but then at night is where your accidents and things like that happen?
It seems like everybody gets sick in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's more to talk about after these messages. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Your Health Matters. My guest today is Brent Paul, the lead pilot for Guardian Air. Thanks again for being on the program, Brent.
Glad to be here.
So before the break, we just started talking about how people seem to get more sick in the middle of the night, and that's when you get a lot of the calls.
Well, I don't know if that's really true, but we've tried to do statistics to figure out what time of the day we do more flights, and you know what? There is no rhyme or reason, actually, but it just seems when you're the night pilot, the flight always seems to be at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning instead of at 9.
Right. So now I'm curious. I mean, like when we're driving a car, we have a road map that tells us what roads to get to, and obviously you're flying enough, but when you first move to a new area or whatever, do you have a map that shows, or do you follow the highways, or how do you know how to get where you're going?
We just stop and ask directions. No, we do carry maps with us. We have current aviation maps, but and that we do use sometimes. So we have GPS. Is state of the art. It's one of the reasons why I like flying for Guardian. They have, the helicopters here are, in my opinion, the best that there are, and they have all of the equipment
Awesome.
that could help you that they don't have even in even other areas close to here. They don't have a lot of the things that we have in the helicopter. We actually have 2 GPSs.
Okay.
So that you can look at stuff, and then we have a screen, a big screen where it's all a moving map GPS that displays everything from those GPSs. So you
it's
actually
like
have
your fishing depth finder sort of thing?
kind
or
of, it's got a a digital picture of the area with a map. It's got you, the helicopter, in the middle of it. When you punch in a location, it'll draw a line to that location, and all you do is look over and make the little helicopter follow the line.
Make sure it follows the line. Oh, that's
And
kind
if
of
it
cool.
follows the line, you'll get there. Of course, there's other information that tells you
Sure,
how far, how long, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but it all is displayed. That's really nice. We just got a brand new helicopter back in December.
Very good.
And it has, along with those GPSs, with the moving map display, we have weather radar. So like if we're flying and there's thunderstorms in the area, that's actually displayed on the moving map GPS so that we can see the cells and fly
There's
around
a way
them.
to go around it. Okay.
We've got what's called TCAS now, so we can actually, on that same display, we can see if there's other aircraft getting close to us. We can see other aircraft that are around us so that we can avoid other aircraft.
That's always a good thing.
We have we have a terrain avoidance system where
A train avoidance?
terrain.
Oh, terrain. I thought you said train. We have a lot of trains in
Trains,
Kingman,
yeah.
but no.
No, terrain
Okay.
avoidance system, and basically it knows where the mountains are and stuff, and if
Okay.
you get down, if you get close, you're coming up to a ridge line. If you're not high enough, it actually alerts you, gives you a warning
Up,
that
boy,
you
up.
need terrain warning, and so that you can make
Awesome.
sure that you're high enough. Of course, we've got, for about 5 years now, we've had night vision goggles, so we can see at night as good as you can see. Everything's green, but it's amazing. A lot of people don't realize how good
You can actually see
you
at
can
night.
see the.
Because you're doing visual as well, right? I mean, obviously you have your equipment, but you still got to look out the windows kind
We're
of see where
flying
you're going.
visually all the
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
And so we're looking outside, but you can see the train, you can see the weather. The acuity is 20 with just like a sliver of moon. We're talking, a visual acuity of like 20, 23, better than a lot of people's eyes are.
Wow.
And so you can actually
really can see where
very,
you're
very
going at
well
night.
at night. Everything's just green, but you can see extremely well.
That's cool.
And so you have that. We now have radios that we can talk to just about anybody. We have satellite phones in the aircraft if the radios don't work.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of assistance. We're followed constantly by our dispatcher in
Okay, so it knows where
in-
you're at. And
in Flagstaff. They're watching where we are, and should we stop or had a problem, they know exactly where we are. They're in contact, and they're backed up by Air Methods. They have another system in Denver that sits and follows us on
Oh, wow.
computer. They know where we are
even that far away, just
all the time
cool.
because with the GPS system on the helicopter, it follows us. They know exactly where we are all
Wow.
the time and can follow us.
So now that's all in the front, and then in the back is where the patient and your nurse and your medic or paramedic are back there. Now, do you have equipment in the back as well that's used for the patient, or do they bring everything with them?
There's a lot of, it's almost like a mini ER
Oh,
in
wow.
the back. They have monitors, and I'm not a medical expert,
Right,
but they
yeah.
have basically anything that you could do in the ER, they can do
Right
in the back
there.
of the helicopter.
Cool.
They also do some specialty, they do some OB, so they have special stuff for pregnant mothers and for little babies. We do have balloon pumps that can go for heart patients that may be
Right.
flown out of the cath lab sometimes.
Excellent.
And so they do have,
They can
like
really
I said,
step in for
just
almost
about
every-
anything that the kinds of equipment you'd have in the ER,
Okay.
they have in the back of the
I mean,
helicopter. with them.
Obviously, the goal before you transport is to have the patient stabilized as much as possible before you get them up and on to the next place they're going. But so you're
Exactly.
prepared for any emergency.
Right, and that is a lot of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when we go out to a scene, to a
Like an
rollover
accident.
accident, then they're going from square one. But lots of times the doctor's already seen the patient at the hospital. They're stabilized,
Yeah.
and so they monitor them. Do you know, they have a lot of drugs, a lot of pain medication.
Okay.
That they
That's all
you know
in
that
there.
they can help the patients while they get
Okay.
transferred.
So what's the, I don't know if weird, or what's the craziest rescue you've been on? Well, should I limit it down to just since you've been in Kingman?
Since I've been in Kingman, because in Alaska I did some pretty far out stuff.
I bet you did.
It's a little more civilized down here. I have probably some of the funnest, neatest things people do is we do go down in the Grand Canyon sometimes.
Oh, so you do.
And do rescues. We go down to Supai sometimes. Last year there was a lady that, and that was the fun one for me because there's parts of the Grand Canyon where there's lots of restrictions of who can
Right.
fly. And in some places it's only tour helicopters, and then
Right.
there's other portions where you can't even have a helicopter, period.
Right.
There's no noise, very sensitive areas
yeah.
unless we're going in to rescue somebody. And there was a lady that was, I believe she was hurt while whitewater rafting.
Oh,
But they weren't sure, but they had gone down with their rafts a little farther down the river, and so they weren't sure exactly where they were at.
oh.
And so we got to drop down into the bottom of the
Just
Grand
kinda
Canyon
follow
and
the
fly
river,
up
try
the
to
river
find-
for
oh.
about 15 or 20 miles along the canyon
Watching for 'em.
until we found where they were at and was able to bring her out and take her up into Vegas.
So how did you, I mean, did you drop, like in the TV movies, you see they drop something or someone goes down and brings her up? How did you get her?
No,
Did they have a spot where you could land?
We don't have hoist.
Okay.
We work if we need that up in Alaska with the big helicopters. We had hoist, and it takes a lot of training, which is a lot of time and practice. Well, in the civilian world, that's also a lot of money
Right.
to keep people proficient, and there just aren't that many rescues where you need a hoist.
Okay.
And so it's just not cost. So we don't do that. If we did need that, what we do is we work with DPS, and DPS does it's not a hoist, but it's called a long line. And they'll come down with a person with a rope, tie the person up, get them all packaged up, and they lift them under the helicopter, and they don't bring them into the helicopter. They dangle under the helicopter on a rope, and they take them over to the closest safe spot to land, and then we would come in and pick up the patient and take it
Wow.
off. But they do the rope rescues here.
Okay. So how did you pick up that lady when you were flying up the
They were
river?
they had pulled their rafts. They were sitting on a sandbar on the river in the
Wow.
bottom of the canyon,
That
so
had
we
to
just
be
landed.
kind of challenging because those sandbars aren't that big, right? I mean,
Some of them are small, but you know,
Yeah.
we don't need a very big spot to land. You know, to be honest, on that particular rescue, it was probably 150 yards. It was actually a pretty big
that's
sandbar.
good. So that's probably one of the reasons they went down a little farther, was trying to find a place that maybe.
A good spot for the
Yeah.
helicopter to land.
That's good. Wow. So
But
if
we work, like I said, we work with DPS sometimes. Lots of times the Park Service helicopter
Uh-huh.
will pull them out of the bottom of the canyon and bring them up to the rim where we'll pick up the patients.
Okay.
It happened that day that their helicopter was out of service,
Oh.
and that's why we actually went
got
down
called
into
in.
the bottom to get
So
them.
you just have to be prepared for anything
Right.
and
We
everything. huh?
back each other up.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I know we had a patient, I think it wasn't last because it was Christmas before, from the reservation who had her baby on the helicopter.
I've been close.
Yeah.
I've flown a couple one out of Supai, a couple
Right.
of years back, that just within a minute or two of getting here to the hospital, she had her baby.
Yeah. It's like,
So far not in the helicopter.
no,
So
lots of challenges.
that would be
So-
a bad thing.
Just not quite prepared for that. And I don't know what you name your baby after that. Skylight? I don't know. What's that?
Well, not that. All the medical people are in the back, and the patient lays beside me.
Oh,
so
really?
the lower half of their body is right next to me, so
Oh,
I'd have to
you
deliver
be-
the babies.
That would
That
be
would
a
be
bit
bad.
of a challenge while you're trying to fly and catch the baby.
We would probably actually land, and the medical people would take care
Yeah,
of it,
that
and then
sounds
we
like-
would continue.
Okay. Well, Brent, thank you. I appreciate you being on the show, and it's good for the people to get to know more about what they can expect and feel in safe hands if they do need to be flighted out of Kingman or rescued from
It's been
somewhere
a pleasure,
else.
and
So,
we're glad to be here and help the
Great.
community.
super. Well, I hope you learned something today. I know I did. Join us again next week and we'll have another great guest on the program.